Use ride-hailing a Bolt in Kumasi begin feeling the pinch as drivers commence demanding a mandatory extra charges of up to 37% for every ride. Also, hundreds of sacks of cocaine and marijuana are set to be destroyed with fire. We've got details of all of these stories and more coming up for you here on the Starr Midday News. Do stay tuned.
Starr News is coming to you live on Ultimate 106.9 FM in Kumasi, Empire 102.7 FM in Takrady, Zeps 95.9 FM in Zebila, Nissim 100.1 FM in Lamshao, My Star Radio in the USA, also live on Facebook on Starr 103.5 FM and on starfm.com.gh around the world. This is Starr 103.5 FM. Starr News. Informed, in-depth, in touch.
Thank you very much once again for joining us here on the Starr Midday News. My name is Lantam, Papanko. Now, the Office of the Special Prosecutor has absolved former President John Dramani Mahama of any corruption in the controversial Airbus purchase scandal. According to the Office of the Special Prosecutor, even though its investigations reveal that ex-President Mahama is government official one, there is no evidence suggesting corruption. The Special Prosecutor addressed the media a while ago. Have a listen.
It appears to the OSP that the direct communications and meetings between former President Mahama and officials of Airbus to close the deal were actuated by good intentions on the part of the former president. It also appears that Foster and his associates became involved as intermediaries in the Airbus Ghana deal after the decision by the government of Ghana in preference of the C-295 aircraft. Therefore, it seems that Foster's Airbus intermediary role at the time his brother served as the vice president of Ghana was a case of luckless coincidence that attracted the disapproval of the UK and US authorities. The OSP found no evidence that suggests that the involvement of Foster as an intermediary of Airbus and the direct communications and meetings between former President Mahama and officials of Airbus to close the deal between Airbus and the government of Ghana amounted to any corruption and corruption-related offense in respect of which the OSP has a mandate.
You've just listened to the Special Prosecutor Kisi Ejabeng addressing the media a while ago, and in that particular address, he went on to recount how the Office of the Special Prosecutor went ahead with its investigations and how they arrived at the conclusion that there is no wrongdoing. They looked at the evidence that was presented to them, and through the evidence that was presented to them, they realized that the transaction was as would be done normally by any businessman, and whatever payments were received by any of the people involved were payments that were received as doing their duties as legitimate businessmen. Now, the Office of the Special Prosecutor also found out that because of the position of government official one, who is John Dramani Mahama, in sitting in meetings and doing some of these transactions, because of the sensitive nature of that particular position, it is not the best, and it's something which needs to be looked at. But then, because of the involvement of President John Mahama and one of the people involved, who is Samuel Adam Foster, who is related to John Mahama by blood, because of that, it raised suspicions that there could have been some conflict of interest, among other things. We'll bring you some more details of this particular press conference, which was delivered by the Office of the Special Prosecutor and, of course, led by the Special Prosecutor himself, Kisi Ejabeng. Let's get onto the phone line and speak to our Parliamentary Affairs correspondent and head of our political desk, Ibrahim Al-Hassan, for a further breakdown on what was revealed by Special Prosecutor Kisi Ejabeng. Ibrahim, welcome to the bulletin. Let's try and break down and help our listeners understand exactly where the Special Prosecutor was coming from with the revelations that he made in the press conference today.
Well, so this investigation actually started in Amatinamido after referral by the president of the land, no mean a person, and the president of the land, and I don't know what, to that office for an investigation to be occasioned into the Airbus scandal. The genesis of this story, Lantam, is that Airbus decided to enter into what in legal terms you call a plea deal with the authorities in the UK and the US relative to its activities in a number of countries, including Ghana. And the allegation was that its officials were given monetary inducement just so they could get business. Airbus pleaded guilty. Some fines were imposed, and in return, the prosecution of the officials was deferred. Then in there, some individuals were mentioned from Ghana. One is Adam Mahama, or Adam Foster Mahama, and now the OSP has been able to establish his identity. A junior brother to former President John Dramani Mahama, and two other business partners of his in the UK. And then also, government official one now has been officially established as former President John Dramani Mahama. Now, early this year, John Dramani Mahama was invited by the special prosecutor for interrogation, after which, as you are aware, under Martin Amidu, a red notice alert was issued by Interpol for the arrest and repatriation of Adam Mahama and all those who were named as involved in the Airbus deal. The OSP tells us that the Interpol red alert gets next to nothing in getting these individuals repatriated into the country or even arrested in the first place. Again, a request was made to the authorities in the UK and the US for documentations bordering on their investigations to be forwarded to the office. That yielded next to nothing. And so when Kissi Agyabeng assumed the reins of office as the special prosecutor, he continued with the investigation. He was able to, as I mentioned, interrogate John Dramani Mahama and all the other individuals who were named. After the thorough investigation, the conclusion is that there is no evidence whatsoever that indeed bribes were paid in the first place, right? So there's no evidence that bribes were paid in the first place. And secondly, the conversation around the fact that
bribes were paid had to be established from two fronts. First, were the officials named expecting payment from Airbus? The answer is yes. What payment were they expecting? Payment for services rendered. Payment for services rendered. The second one is, what was the expectation of the Airbus officials in making these payments? They, per what they told the authorities in the UK and US, were paying bribes. So, Lantam, pay attention to this. Payments were made. Mm-hmm. It came down to how the payments were viewed. Mm-hmm. To the recipient, we had rendered a service, a legitimate service, and we were expecting payment, which is documented. To the Airbus officials, per the plea agreement they reached with the authorities, those payments were bribes. Now, the OSP has established that those payments were not bribes, because there's evidence to the effect that there were contractual agreements about commissions to be paid. Now, the link between Mahama, that's Junior, and Mahama Senior is what the OSP call it flagged and said that he established that the involvement of John Dramani Mahama as a president or government officer one was with genuine intention in getting the aircraft purchased for the military. Now, the relationship between Samuel Adam Mahama and Airbus predates this particular deal. So he had done some work for them even before the brother became president. And that is why the OSP then, the SP then establishes that familiar relationship between the two is not the reason why the country purchased the 3 aircrafts. Again, there was no evidence that Samuel Mahama received bribe and then transferred the bribe to his brother, the president, John Dramani Mahama. Now, if you put that aside, what the OSP looked forward to establishing was the deal sent to Parliament. Did it follow all the laid down processes in procurement of gadgets for the military? The conclusion is that it did. It went to Parliament, the military hierarchy was involved and everything. And so the final conclusion is that the OSP is not in a place to prosecute any of the officials named. No bribes were paid. The Interpol red alert that was issued has just this morning been withdrawn by the directive of the OSP, and this case is deemed closed.
Right. And there was also another aspect of the press conference where the special prosecutor referred to the relationship between Samuel Adam Foster and John Mahama, and the fact that he was in government and the perception that it creates. And he was not too happy with that kind of relationship given the position that the former president occupied. And he said it's something that should not be encouraged.
Exactly. And to quote him directly, he talks about the fact that the former president ought to have known that his involvement directly, even though his brother is equally involved as agent to Airbus, will have raised eyebrows. And so it's legitimate that anybody will flag this as a potential conflict of interest. So moving forward, officials in his capacity must do everything possible to insulate themselves from that direct involvement. And of course, that he mentions.
Very well. Thank you very much, Ibrahim Al-Hassan. He's the head of our political desk, and he's also our parliamentary correspondent, bringing us details or a breakdown of the press conference which was just organized by the Office of the Special Prosecutor. Now, the majority in Parliament is accusing the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin, of bias. This follows the Speaker's rejection of the request by the Asai to recall Parliament within 7 days and Article 112. They are seeking to handle pending parliamentary business, including the approval of bills and nominees to the courts by the president. The Speaker says the request cannot be granted because of logistical constraints. He has rather summoned the House to return on September 3. Here are excerpts of the Speaker's response.
A careful review of the matters outlined in the request reveals that they do not meet the threshold set by Article 112. Most of the issues, including the $250 million IDA financing agreement, were already tabled before the House prior to the adjournment on 30th July 2024. The fact that these matters were already under the consideration by Parliament, and in the case of the IDA financing agreement, were even subjected to debate and rejected, undermines the essence of the request for a recall. Indeed, several of the bills listed on the request are bills that are still under consideration at the committee. At committee, the official reports of 30th July showed unwillingness of even members of the majority side to transact the same business due to the ongoing renovation works in the chamber and the period required to recondition the AICC, adhering strictly to the requirement of the standing orders that Parliament convene within 7 days after the notice is issued would impose significant practical challenges. With the chamber under renovation, finding an alternative venue on short notice would be impracticable, costly, and an unnecessary strain on Parliament and public funds. To address these practical concerns and to allow sufficient time for preparations, as I intimated several times to the House before the adjournment synodine, I summoned Parliament to meet on Tuesday, 3rd of September 2024 at a place and venue to be communicated as soon as one becomes available. Order 53 cannot therefore be fully complied with.
You've just listened to excerpts of a statement issued by the Speaker of Parliament. Well, the Deputy Majority Chief Whip, Alex Tete Jonobwa, does not agree with the Speaker's decision. According to the Sefia Kontombra MP, there are other venues available for MPs to reconvene. He insists that the business at hand is urgent, contrary to the Speaker's posture.
And the majority side, we actually put up our signatures to let the Speaker call the House on the 7 sitting working days. But yesterday, to my surprise, we saw a letter on our platform that the Speaker is rather calling for the House on the 3rd of September, which I think is unfair, simply because Speaker, even though he's the CEO of the House, but per the Constitution requirement, Speaker has to adhere to the requirement of the Constitution. Actually don't agree with the Speaker explanation that there is a renovation. We have the dome where we swear the president, the current president in the second term. And that's one we can use it for the business in the House. So I don't know whether he has a discussion with our leader, Afinion Market, which I'm not privy to any information. So
you talk about the dome being there, but according to the speaker, that place is not very conducive for you to come and do the business that you want to do.
We used it after the swearing when the COVID was in 2019, 2020. We used that one to transact in the house. So I don't think what speaker is saying is right. And I have not seen any renovation work ongoing in the chamber.
There's also the other thing that the speaker talks about, the matters that you say are an emergency. He doesn't consider it as an emergency, and these are things that can be looked at, later on when Parliament resumes. So why do you consider those items an emergency?
Before we go on recess, we met Speaker and he prioritized some of the bills, like EPA bills, the Environmental Protection Bill, the Ghana Boundary Commission Bill. That's the words of the Speaker. And he wanted us even to finish these bills before we go on recess. Unfortunately, we couldn't. And we have the vetting of the judges that have been nominated to the Supreme Court. Before our recess, the judges came to Parliament to spend the whole day. And without the minority actually refused for us to vet them. And we have this outstanding issue. We in the majority think we have an urgent business to transact. And we have used the constitutional instrument to trigger this particular request. So I don't think Speaker can base on his own assumption that whatever we are saying is not true.
Well, Alex Tete Junubo also refuted Speaker Bagwin's accusation of abuse of the process by the majority caucus.
We actually have a word or have a talk with the Speaker to actually let us go on recess around Friday before the Tuesday that he actually adjourned the House. And he said he's traveling. And even though the two deputy speakers are not around to actually preside over the House, per our new standing order, a senior member can be nominated to preside over the House if Speaker is not around and the deputies are not around. But Speaker actually refuses to accept that request too. And that is why we have put up the constitutional requirement that we need to recall the House to finish this business that I've mentioned to you. The Environmental Protection Bill, the Ghana Boundary Commission Bill, we all know what is actually happening in the various borders of our neighboring countries. And that is why we need to actually pass this particular bill for Ghana to actually know its boundaries and the other countries that we share with. So I think Speaker is not being fair to the majority side.
Alex Tete Junubo is the Member of Parliament for Session Kontombra and a Deputy Majority Chief Whip in Parliament. Now, drivers of ride-hailing a boat in the Ashanti region have increased fares between 25% to 37.5% for rides costing below 50 Ghana cedis. Passengers covering distances with fares above 50 cedis will have to brace themselves to be charged higher, as the union has ordered drivers to negotiate an extra fare. This action is in clear defiance of the operations of the ride-hailing app company, which has not varied its charges. The drivers say they are compelled to take this measure after several failed attempts to get boats to increase their fares amidst increasing prices of fuel and vehicle spare parts. Ultimate FM's Ivan Heathcote Fumado has been speaking to some passengers and drivers in this report.
What has been your experience with the drivers and the fares?
These boat drivers, when you request for the ride, then they will call you and ask where you are going to. And they'll ask you again, how much were you charged? And if you tell them, let's say 20 cedis or 30 cedis, they'll tell you, I shall increase. When I come, you have to add something small to it for me.
So this passenger just encountered what has now become the new order of boat drivers in the Ashanti regional capital, Kumasi. Now, what appears on the app as a fare is now just a bargaining point for an extra charge.
I don't think it's cool because the app has already given me the price. Yeah, once you order, the price comes along with it. So why would you tell me to give you additional money? They would want to charge you more. And sometimes they'll go off strip.
From Ultimate FM in Denyame, I test the system, hailing a ride to the Dufie Towers in Edum. The fare, which appears on the app, is 21 cedis. But my driver, who gives his name as George Amachiba, says he's taking 26 cedis. An extra 5 cedi charge. George, who reads this new fare setting regime from a press statement, explains why all drivers on the boat app appear to back this consensus.
21 to 29, that's 5 cedis extra. 30 to 39, 10 cedis extra. 40 to 49, 15 cedis extra, and from 50 going, you, the client or the rider, you have to negotiate with your driver. The reason is that if we cast our minds back, looking at the price increment of the fuel up to now where we are, though of late, just last week, government brought a bit deduction, but we, before coming out with this, there has been a lot of price increment of fuel, and even spare parts, to be precise, my brother. It's not easy for us.
Per a rough computation, fares are going up between 25% and 37%, with passengers expected to bargain for more should their fares cross the 50 cedi mark. Chairman of the Ashanti Region Online Drivers Union, Isaac Bafo Boateng, says passengers are not being unduly punished.
The word punishment is broad.
We are burden sharing. The economy is hard. Everybody is struggling. But if you raise between 25% to 40%, aren't you being inconsiderate to the passenger?
Then don't you also think that when you are sharing the cost, the app managers should also bear in mind?
So are we being punished?
I think people who are being punished here are the drivers. If the system is too hard for the app companies to increase their prices because of the competition in the system, the best they could do was to agree with us and make sure that they reduce their commission from 25%.
Isaac insists the drivers will continue to play rough with passengers if Bolt does not increase its fare charge or reduce commissions paid to the company.
We are not charging arbitrarily. What we are doing is that for you, the passenger, to report on the app, let the app company knows what is going on the ground, so that they will sit with the leadership of the union and then resolve things amicably. But then if they sit in their office and spite on our face that and call our bluff that if you can drive on it, drive on it. If you cannot drive on it, park your car. Then you are doing anyhow. So literally, the drivers will also be acting anyhow.
For now, if you're a passenger using the Bolt app in Kumasi, you should know that your fare that appears on the app is immaterial. It is what the driver wants, per the directives of the Online Drivers Union, that holds. Reporting for Starr News. From the Central Business District of the Ashanti Regional Capital, Kumasi, Ivan Heathcote Fumado, Ultimate FM.
And that's Ivan Heathcote Fumado's report there. Time now for sports. Jones Aji is in the studio with the details. Jones, what's in sports?
All right, so Ghana, disappointing. One, they have been disqualified in their 4x100 relay semi-final event in the Olympics after a faulty baton changeover in Heat 2 this morning as Ibrahim Husseini handed the baton to Joseph Paul Amwa outside the changeover zone. Now, speaking after the event, Joseph Paul Amwa says the stadium was really loud and they struggled to hear the calls of their colleagues.
Better. The stadium was loud, obviously, but instead of using it as an advantage, I think it kind of broke us in some way. Not hearing the call and stuff like that. But we did our best. We did our best, and hopefully we do better next time. We weren't nervous. It was just too loud to the extent that even if you shout hand, you might not hear, So going into the race, I think all of us were, really calm and ready to compete. There were no nerves and stuff like that. Yeah, we got DQ.
Meanwhile, Benjamin Azamati believes that the team could have done better and they have no excuses.
Exactly happened? I can't say much because I'm not looking behind me. So I think Rashid will be able to answer those questions. But overall, no excuses. I think it's not a better race from us. We know we can do better. But as I said, we can't give any excuses. We just have to perform better.
Now, finally, still on the Olympics, though, Australian Olympic hockey player Tom Craig has been banned from attending the closing ceremony after being arrested and spending a night in Paris police station for allegedly trying to buy cocaine on the streets of the French capital. Craig faces further sanctions from the Hockey Australian Association, which is set to commence a disciplinary procedure into the incident that occurred when he was out in Paris with his other members. So here's Craig, who has apologized and says he's sorry.
I'd firstly like to apologise for what has occurred over the past 24 hours. I made a terrible mistake. I take full responsibility for my actions. My actions are my own and by no way reflect the values of my family, my teammates, my friends, my sport, and the Australian Olympic team. I've embarrassed you all, and I'm truly sorry.
All right, so that'll be all for sports. My name is Jones Aji.
Thank you very much, Jones, for bringing us the details in sports. Now, a truck full of marijuana and cocaine has arrived at the beach behind the Independence Square in the company of the CID operatives to be destroyed. These substances have been brought to be destroyed upon court orders, while persons in possession of them have been convicted and sentenced variously. Officials from NACOC, court registrars and police are currently at the scene of the exercise, and our legal affairs correspondent Mutala Inusa is at the scene, joins us with more. Mutala, what can you report us regards this exercise?
Well, Lantam, what we have been informed earlier, we do not have the official, the final numbers yet, but what we've been informed is that about 242 sacks of compressed material said to be marijuana. And in fact, a short while ago earlier, when the registrar of the court also arrived, he came with a piece of cocaine which were wrapped in cream crackers boxes. And of course, there were lots of them that have been unpacked here at the beach currently. What is clear is that the police truck that earlier brought the first one has come with a second tranche. The second tranche has been offloaded, and as we speak, the third one, the band has just left to bring out the third one that we've been informed. After which, when everything is set, the whole exercise will continue or will start from right now. He's still piling out, he's still removing, gathering the substances that are said to be marijuana. And after everything is said, fire will be setting to be destroyed. In fact, I must put on record that these are incidences or cases that happened between 2021 to 2024. Within that time frame is when all these materials came to the fore. Persons involved in these transactions, some of them have been convicted and sentenced. That is how come the circuit court, variously, differently constituted, I must say, have ordered their destruction. So what is clear is that the last tranche is being said to be it's on its way coming, and one that is said, the fire will be set in here. But we've been told that about 242 sacks of them, and then there are lots of compressed materials also that have been indicated. I counted per the document that I was given, over 400 of compressed materials or wrapped parcels have all been put here at the beach, and very soon it will be destroyed. But what is clear is that that's what the exercise is currently under. Officials of the court, officials of the Ghana Police Service, and NACOC are currently here. CID officials have also gathered here to ensure that whatever orders have been given by the court is complied.
Very well. Mutala Inusa, thank you for bringing us that report. Mutala Inusa is our court correspondent. And that's it for the Star Midday News here on Star 103.5 FM. Thank you very much for listening. For more news, log on to starfm.com.gh. Also take a look at our social media pages at Star 1035 FM on Facebook, on X, and on Instagram. My name is Lantam Papanko. Have a good day.